This week on Money Matters, Greece heads into uncharted territory as Greeks voted no in a key referendum with its finances hanging by a thread. How will this impact the world economy and Korea? Cash or credit? Which do you prefer? We look at patterns of spending and the preferred means of payment. And games on the go, the mobile game industry is swelling and Korean firms are out to grab new potential at their fingertips. What stories matter in Asia? We'll look at the changing landscape of business in Korea and the rest of Asia on Money Matters. Hello everyone, I'm Nai Hyun-kyung. Thanks for joining us this week. Let's begin with some of the top business headlines across Asia. The Korean government says it will pump in an extra 22 trillion won or $20 billion to help prop up the economy, which has taken a thumping from the MERS outbreak. The stimulus package will include an extra budget worth $10.5 billion, most of which will be funded by treasury bonds and state funds. Now, this comes after the government cut the country's growth outlook by 0.7 percentage points to 3.1%. Spending and tourism have been hard hit due to MERS fears, while exports fell yet again in June for the sixth consecutive month. In the ongoing legal battle between Samsung and U.S. hedge fund Elliott, Korea's largest conglomerate secured the first win. This is after a Seoul court handed Elliott a defeat in its first injunction against a key merger between two Samsung affiliates that would help a smooth leadership transition. The court ruled the share swap ratio between JL Industries and Samsung C&T is not unjust and that it is in accordance to existing laws. Korea has committed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 37% by the year 2030, a much higher goal than its initial maximum target of 31%. The plan submitted to the United Nations at the end of June has stirred up strong opposition from firms around the country. 30 business associations and 38 energy and development-related companies released a joint statement calling the target quote-unquote excessive and unrealistic. The new commitment comes ahead of a UN meeting in December that aims to develop a new global climate agreement. For 39 consecutive months, Korea has logged a current account surplus with figures in May hitting $8.6 billion. That's up 6% from the previous month. The Bank of Korea says this breaks the previous surplus run record of 38 months, which started in June 1986. The central bank said low global oil prices contributed to the account surplus. Imports slid by 20% in May compared to the 16% drop of exports on year. The current account surplus has stirred up concerns as it may further strengthen the local currency. Greece has in effect defaulted on its debt payment with the IMF, and we'll get a closer look at some of the key dates in the debt crisis. Now, as you will remember, on June 27th, Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras called for a referendum on bailout measures proposed by international creditors. Eurozone officials then broke off bailout talks, and 3 days later, Greece failed to meet its deadline on its €1.6 billion debt payment to the IMF. With a no vote to the referendum, there are higher possibilities of a Grexit scenario. The country already has €2 billion in treasury bills due tomorrow, and on the 20th, it will face €3.5 billion in bond payments. Now, to talk more about the implications of this debt disaster and what it means for the global economy and Korea, we have Mr. James Rooney, the chairman of Advanced Capitals Partners. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Rooney.
Nice to see you again.
Now, let's start with some of the possible scenarios we're looking at here. Greece is in desperate need of a new lender. Are we looking at a country on the verge of an exit from the Eurozone?
It's not clear to me that exiting from the Eurozone solves any problem for Greece in a profound fashion. The real issue is Greece has too much debt. It's not going to be able to pay it back, and therefore one would imagine that the real issue is to resolve the amount of debt by having a debt haircut. The complication with that is if the Eurozone accepts a discounting of Greece's debt, then a lot of other countries in Europe can be expected to demand the same thing. Mm-hmm. So the problem is to contain this crisis within the scope of Greece and not let it spread to the rest of the Eurozone. Countries like Italy, countries that have exited the crisis management like Ireland and Portugal, they have successfully done the right thing to get their economies back on track. To have Greece not do the right things and at the same time get benefits from it, I think would cause a lot of difficulty within the European community.
Mm-hmm. What about the lenders? I mean, how would such results affect, for example, Germany, Greece's largest creditor at this point?
Well, the reality is that the Eurozone and its leadership have known for some time that Greece is a problem child. So the last few years have seen them restructuring Greece's debt so that it's largely owned by the European Central Bank, the IMF, the sovereign lenders of the Eurozone, and not by, in any significant fashion, not by individual banks or even the private sector. So if there were a collapse of the Greek debt, which I think really we have to assume has happened now, the pain of it is going to be very much contained. So I don't see a significant effect within the Eurozone just from a collapse of Greece's debt, because that problem has been well anticipated.
Mm-hmm. Now, the global markets, nonetheless, are already seeing effects from the situation in Greece. Specifically in Asia, though, are the effects more contained than expected?
Well, I think, we have to look at the Greek economy as being a very, very small economy relative even to Europe, let alone to the global economy. So any contagion effects from Greece are going to be very limited. There are neighboring countries that are probably going to have more impact from it. Cyprus, which is a small island. Turkey has quite a lot of Greek debt and quite a lot of trade with Greece. But here in Asia, whilst we will be, of course, sorry to see Greek economic collapse, we can't really imagine seeing very much effect on the Korean economy, the Chinese economy, the Japanese economy. These are much, much larger economies for which Greece is a very, very small factor.
Mm-hmm. But the Kospi did react though, right?
Well, the Kospi has actually held up remarkably well over the last few weeks. Although yesterday it certainly took an emotional battering. We'll have to see how it rebounds over the next few days as people calm down and realize that whilst Greece may be taking on some challenges, those challenges aren't really going to affect very much of the rest of the world. And another way to look at it is in terms of the euro. And the euro, whilst it's been a little bit volatile over the last several months, over the last few weeks has been remarkably stable at around 110 to the dollar. And I don't see that changing dramatically under the current circumstances, because there is an awareness that the problem is currently contained. If, on the other hand, we saw a contagion effect where Greece gets some benefit and then other European countries start clamoring for it, that changes the game quite significantly.
Now, in speaking more specifically about Korea, you were one of the people to have witnessed how Korea managed to weather through the Asian financial crisis. How would you say Greece's situation is different from Korea's back in the 90s?
Well, you're right. I had just arrived in Korea in 96, and in 97 we had the Asian financial crisis, which spilled over into Korea, and we love to call that the IMF crisis. Mm-hmm. And in many ways, it was there are similarities with Greece's crisis. The IMF was called in to try and help bolster the economy and support in the foreign exchange markets. But the big difference is that, first of all, Korea was a heavily industrialized company at the time. And most importantly, Korea responded very well to the requests of these lenders by doing the things that were necessary. Greece's problem, I think, comes from a different direction. It's not a very deeply industrialized country. People generally don't pay their taxes. The government provides a lot of the economic activity through employment of government people and pensions and so forth. And now that Greece is faced by real challenges, the government does not seem to be addressing them in a constructive fashion, rather preferring to play what we might call emotional games with its lenders. So this is almost the opposite of what happened in Korea. Korea would really be a poster child, a classic success case for this kind of bailout, and Greece is looking very much like the opposite.
Well, it looks like Greece has a long way to go, all this tying back, of course, into markets around the world. Thank you very much, Mr. Rooney, for coming in today and sharing your insights with us.
You're welcome.
Are you a cash or credit kind of consumer? With technology edging more and more into every aspect of our lives, it seems like a quick swipe of the card, or even nowadays a tap on a smartphone screen, is the easier option when it comes to payments. So what are the most popular forms of payments these days? On today's In Numbers, we'll be taking a look at just what customers reach for when it comes time to check out. The need for cash has almost disappeared in many major cities, including Seoul, where electronic payment has now become accessible just about everywhere. But many people still carry around some cash. For instance, the average Korean wallet will contain about 77,000 won, or roughly $70 US. And on top of that, men seem to carry around a bit more cash with an average of 81,000 won, as opposed to women who carry an average of 72,000 won. But is that cash being used to make payments? Not always. The most frequent payment method used by Koreans based on transaction value is a credit card, making up just over 50% of all transactions. Now that's followed by the debit card, then the use of cash, and lastly, wire transfers, which make up a little over 12% of all payments. But let's take a step back and compare Korea to some other countries around the world. What payment methods are being used in, say, the US and Germany? Well, it seems like the US is similar, with credit cards used the most frequently, followed by debit cards, then cash. Although the discrepancy among the three options is not as severe. Credit, debit, and cash seem to be used rather evenly. But over in Germany, the payment option preference is on the polar opposite side of Korea, with cash making a majority of payments at 53%. Now that's followed by debit at 28%, and only 7% of all transactions are made in Germany using a credit card. So will it be credit, debit, or cash? Well, I guess that depends on which part of the world you're in. That wraps up today's In Numbers. I'll be sure to keep an eye on any new trends and developments coming your way.
It's time to check out the most eye-catching trends in business. For that, Seo Mi-sorang joins us in the studio as usual. Good to see you again, Mi-sorang.
Good to see you.
What do you have for us today?
Well, our first story is about bread. So let me ask you, do you have a favorite or a go-to choice at the bakers?
Well, I usually go for red bean buns and the custard-filled buns.
Well, you know, the ones that you just said, they're great examples of what are considered Korean-style breads. In fact, in France, they're called kupang, meaning Korean bread, and they've become a surprise hit. Korean bakery giant Paris Baguette of SPC Group recently opened a second store in France and announced plans to introduce more Korean-style breads, such as custard buns and soboru streusels, after they became steady sellers at its first store. It's said that locals first give it a go out of curiosity, then become hooked on the unique taste. Likewise, at the rival Korean bakery chain Tous les Jours of CJ Foodville, its milk cream bun is a bestseller in China, and the red bean flavor in the Philippines, where their sweetness appeals to local tastes. And Korea's third largest conglomerate, SK Group, has partnered with the nation's ICT ministry and will fund around $19 million to foster what's called smart agriculture in Sejong City. By using SK Telecom's patent technology, farmers can remotely monitor and control their greenhouses. All they have to do is press a few buttons on their smartphones, and everything from irrigation to temperature and humidity can be adjusted without the need to physically travel there. Initial trials on 100 greenhouses show that productivity and labor efficiency have jumped by 23 and 39% respectively.
I mean, it's incredible to think that a whole farm can be managed through a single application, don't you think? It must be a lifesaver for some of the farms that are short on manpower.
Absolutely. And I mean, in the beginning, of course, there'll be initial setup costs to have cameras, sensors, and activators fitted out, but it's expected to pay off very quickly and bring significant savings in the long run.
All right, what's next, Misorang?
Well, there's a saying in Korea among Korean parents of young children these days: you need to line up to be a good mom or dad. Now, what this means, popular toys sell out very quickly, so parents are having to line up at megamarts to secure the hottest animation toys for their children. Last Christmas, it was the Power Ranger Tyranno King. Earlier this year was the Yoge Watch, both from Japan's Bandai Namco, and most recently it's the turning mecha robots from Korea's Sonogong. Children are notoriously fickle when it comes to their favorite characters, and once an animation series becomes a hit, there's a rush to purchase licensed merchandise. But because most of these toys are made in Chinese factories, it's hard for stores to secure supplies in a timely fashion, and the scarcity is pushing up prices on the internet to nearly quadruple the original value. A growing number of Chinese collectors are zeroing in on Korean contemporary art. At the latest auctions of Korean art in Hong Kong, there were buyers from all continents, but it was Chinese buyers, such as Shanghai Gallery owner Wang Wei, that won most of the highlight pieces, including the $1.7 million Blue Mountain by artist Kim Hwan-gi. Now, the trend among Chinese collectors right now is to look further afield from home turf, and Korean pieces tick all the boxes for them, being more affordable, seemingly undervalued and appealing to Asian sensibilities. On the back of this trend, Korean auction houses that specialize in international sales, such as Seoul Auction, have seen their stock prices nearly quadruple in the past few months.
It's not just the real estate in Korea that Chinese investors are interested in, it seems. Thank you, Ms. Rang, for bringing us these stories today.
Thank you for having me.
Wherever you go these days, you will see people with their eyes glued to one of the latest games on their smartphones. There's no shortage when it comes to the supply of new games, and the industry is growing at breakneck speed, not only since it's easy for people to get access to such games, but also because the games are easier to develop. Korean game companies are out to grab a larger share of the global market, and they are eyeing one place in particular: China.
More than 80% of Koreans own a smartphone, and 13% of that number enjoy mobile games. Now, when taking public transportation, it's common to see your average commuter on his or her smartphone, and given any free time, many will turn to mobile games. As a result, the Korean mobile game market has flourished. Now, when taking a look at the Google Play sales category, the first 5 months posted a 45% hike in sales on year-end. That means about $150 million in sales per month. Korea's mobile game industry last year saw on average 5 new games spilling out each day. Competition is stiff, and the market is near saturation. This is why breaking into markets overseas is now considered crucial for survival. The global mobile game industry has seen rapid growth. As of 2013, North America boasted a market of $3 billion, while Western Europe stood at $2.3 billion, with an on-year growth eclipsing the 60% mark. The largest, though, is Asia Pacific at $5.9 billion. China is a gargantuan market with a potential 1.2 billion users. The mobile game industry has seen accelerated growth, and it's welcomed foreign companies with their gaming content with open arms, adding to its already attractive market.
최근 한 1, 2년 사이에 중국 시장이 엄청 커져가지고 한국의 이제 개발사들이 중국에 이제 진출을 하려고 하는 시도들이 많은데 그 한국 개발사들이 이제 구글을 통해서 혹은 이제 iOS를 통해서 전 세계 런칭을 하는데 중국만 지금 구글 플레이가 없다 보니까 진출이 안 되는 상황이거든요.
Gameville is a leading Korean mobile game publisher, and it's built up its brand from the early days of feature phone games. In 2006, it established an operation in the US, kicking off its global ambitions. Since then, it's opened 12 branches around the world, including Tokyo, Beijing, and Berlin. Dragon Blaze, the company's ambitious project, launched to take on the global market,
broke into the top 10 rankings in Google Play's App Store sales for Southeast Asia.
그러니까 최근에 이제 말씀해주신 대로 중국 모바일 게임들의 공습이 굉장히 거세지고 있다는 맞는 말씀이신 것 같고요. 근데 저희는 이제 꼭 거기에 국한된다라기보다는 중국 모바일 게임만이 경쟁 상대가 아니라 이미 글로벌 게임사들이 경쟁 상대라고 생각하고 있고, 게임성과 글로벌 서비스 노하우가 중요한 것처럼 이제 전 세계 유저풀을 가지고 있는 것을 대상으로 저희만이 가지고 있는 글로벌 서비스 노하우를 접목을 시켜서 앞으로도 계속 서비스를 해 나갈 예정입니다.
Korean games have received good scores in China thanks to their detailed graphics and movements. But the strong performance Korean companies are enjoying in China could be challenged anytime soon. Backed by massive capital and government support measures, Chinese local game publishers are also gaining traction, further pushing into Korea's markets as well. Many hurdles still lie ahead for Korea in order to secure a firm foothold in the Chinese market. One of them being security breaches often imposed by Chinese hackers. One Korean company saw slightly under $500,000 in losses due to hack attack. With no clear regulations, game payment systems are commonly hacked into by malicious apps. Beijing has also gradually been creating more obstacles for foreign game companies to protect homegrown products. Currently, the only channel into the Chinese market is through app stores.
중국에는 이제 굉장히 많은 종류의 핸드폰, 스마트폰 기기들이 있는데, 저희가 테스트를 딱 해보니까 그 구동되는 휴대폰이 한 20%, 전체의 한 20% 정도 내외, BM적인 부분, 그다음에 중국 성향, 그다음에 게임이라는 거는 사실 내가 뭔가 어떤 계획해서 환경을 만드는 거잖아요. 그 환경에 중국 사람들이 이제 자연스럽게 생각하고 있는 그런 것들이 기반이 돼서 조성이 돼야 되는데,
중국의 그 일방적인 투자보다는 이런 글로벌 세계에서 투자도 받아야 되고, 그 다음에 이제 정부의 지원도 심혈을 기울여 주었을 때 게임 산업이 건전하게 갈 수 있는, 극복하기 위해서는 게임의 그런 퀄리티도 높여야 되고, 새로운 영역을 우리가 개척해서 주도권을 이렇게 가져가야 된다고 생각합니다.
With mobile games making cross-border business a much more lucrative option, many companies see a huge potential at their fingertips and at those of many game lovers around the world.
All right, that's all the time we have for this edition of Money Matters. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll bring you plenty of stories as they unfold in Asia next week again and give you a view of the changing landscape of business in the region. I'm Nai Hyun-kyung. Thanks for watching.